Hello and welcome to Next Up Accessories, where we connect your next up and vehicle personalization to make you more money and happier customers. What is vehicle personalization? It's a proven method to present vehicle customization to your customers that will increase your paycheck, give customers the car they want, and skyrocket your CSI. According to our friend and successful sales professional Eric Gonzalez, if your car sale doesn't touch every part of your dealership, then you aren't doing your job, man or woman. Vehicle personalization is the key to making that happen. If you want to learn more about how to bring accessories into every car deal, then this is the podcast for you and a great place to start. For more about vehicle personalization, visit us online at insigniagroup.com. If you are an Insignia Group customer, thank you for your business. Remember to check out our blogs. Lots of best practice tips there. Subscribe to stay up to date or talk to us on social media. I can't stop talking sometimes, so, reach out to us. We'll get back to you. We want to thank Side Hustle for the use of their song, Work With What You've Got. Very appropriate for the car business and today's environment. You can find them at sidehustletheband.com. And they're coming out with a new album, so check that out too. So, Allie, this is your second episode at the helm. How does it feel? She says this feels great. All right, awesome. So this is going to be an awesome show today. Our guest is LeeAnn Shattuck. LeeAnn is an automotive expert, entrepreneur, speaker, author, radio and television host. And she's a race car driver. And I just found out she's a Star Wars fan. So LeeAnn is good people. She is known around the world as the Car Chick and has been featured on national radio and television programs like NPR, The Cooper Lawrence Show, Daily Balance with Kim Jacobs, and the Speed Channel's Are You Faster Than a Redneck? Which, being from the South, that is important because at stoplights, you need to be faster than them, otherwise you're going to eat their exhaust. The Car Chick has a unique car buying service that helps women to get the car deal on a new or used vehicle without the hassle and frustrations that come with a traditional car shopping experience, which we're going to talk about today. That's part of what we do. LeeAnn is a resident of Fort Mill, South Carolina, which is right up the road from us. And she has insights on what customers are looking for from a vehicle, a sales process, and from the dealership. LeeAnn, welcome to our show.
Thanks, David. I appreciate you having me.
So it is so great to have you here. And first and foremost, we are exiting out. This podcast is happening as we are exiting out of COVID. The car shopping experience is totally different. Maybe we're hearing all kinds of things around the industry. What are you hearing about the car shopping experience that's happening right now as we're exiting out of COVID?
Well, several things have happened over the last year with the pandemic. Dealers have had to completely shift their normal sales process. They're used to people coming into the dealership, test driving the car, and going through the sales process at their store. And we were under quarantine. And even after quarantine dropped, people were not comfortable leaving their homes. So I certainly haven't been. Fortunately, I've worked from home for 20 years, so my process didn't have to change at all. But I think has been fun is working with the dealers to actually help them make this shift, because I've been buying cars virtually for nearly 20 years, and my process is designed to minimize my clients' time in the dealership and that contact to streamline it for everyone. So I didn't have to change anything. The dealers would come to me and say, so can we do home test drives? I'm like, oh yes, you can bring the car to the person's house and let them test drive it. Nice. It's not a big deal. A lot of them have learned to use more modern technology to be able to do paperwork online. We've been doing that for years. Right. It's been really fun to see them make that shift. And I hope that will continue, because other dealers like Carvana and some of those companies that have come in and have a completely touchless model where you shop from home, it's delivered to your doorstep. Those are the things that people are really looking for, that convenience. And especially after the pandemic. I mean, if something takes longer than 2 days to get to my house after I order it online, I get mad.
Right. Your expectation of delivery of anything at this point in time is, if it's not instantaneous, I mean, it is 2 days max.
And it needs to come to my house.
Right.
I don't want to go anywhere.
I don't want to go
the
pick it up.
pandemic has made me lazy.
Exactly. So let's also, because I would think that if I was a car sales professional and I tuned into this and I heard sort of the introduction, I'm thinking I'm in competition with Leanne. She's trying to take my customer away. And what you just described is actually not at all. You work very closely with the dealership. You work very closely with the showroom to deliver that vehicle. You're sort of like an extension. So tell us how you work in partnership with dealerships, because I think that's important to sort of establish here as, really a good baseline for the rest of the conversation.
Absolutely. When we started the company, one of the key guiding principles was we are not against the dealer. We want to create a win-win situation because the dealers spend a lot of effort, a lot of money, and a lot of stress being able to attract and retain a customer to make that sale. And they know that if the customer leaves their lot, there's not a strong chance that they're necessarily going to come back and buy the car from them. So I can cut all of that out, both for the customer and for the dealer. So I can be that trusted link. So my clients come to me. Most of them don't even know what they want. They know what they need. They know what they need the vehicle to do for them. But there are so many makes and models on the market right now, and a lot of really good choices in every category, that it can be a little overwhelming. And a little market research that we did showed that women spend on average 17 weeks just researching cars before they make a buying decision. That's before they even start the process to buy the car. It's
Yeah.
just all the research to try and figure it out. There's so much information on the internet, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing.
Right.
So I cut through all of that by having a process that looks at my client's unique lifestyle, budget, and personality to help figure out what is that right car. And because I do know everything that's out there, I can narrow it down usually very quickly to 2 or 3 vehicles that I think would not just meet their needs, but would also suit their personality. Because let's face it, we spend a lot of time in our cars. You got to love what you drive. You just got to.
Yeah.
So then I can set them up on the test drives and make the connections with the dealers. And then because I know how all the ins and outs work, I handle all the legwork and negotiating for them, which is a benefit to the customer. They don't have to go through that hassle, because that's a big part of what people don't enjoy. And from the dealer's perspective, I'm bringing them a customer pretty much gift wrapped. All they've got to do is, bring a ridiculously good deal to the table, and also bring a good customer relationship, a good customer experience to the table, and work with me with my process. And then I can guarantee them really good CSI scores.
Yeah,
so it creates a win-win.
If I were a car salesperson, I would be reaching out to you and I would make you my best friend, because you would just be an extension of another sale that I could make. And my goodness, you're right. You would be bringing the customer all the way to, you'd be bringing the horse to the water, as they say. So
and that is how it's worked, because I have certain mostly I work with the managers, but I have some car salespeople too that handle my test drives and my deliveries. And I have been friends with them now for nearly 20 years. And it was funny this time last year when everybody went into lockdown and the dealers weren't selling any cars. My business was going crazy. So I ended up being the top salesperson for one of the dealerships here in Charlotte. I sold more cars than any of their people did because of the situation. So I got the little gold star on their board.
Amazing. All right. So let's take a time out and let's step back and let's say, how did you get into the car business? Because it's one of those industries that once you're in, you can't seem to escape. So how did you get into the car business?
I got into it, I think, very differently than most people. Growing up, I've just always loved cars. And I had an opportunity. I grew up in the IT industry, so I was a project manager. And I got to the point where I was burning out on that. And I wanted to do something very, very different. And just fate intervened. And maybe it was the force, David. I think it was the force. And I ended up connecting with a woman who had grown up in the car business, been working for dealerships since she was literally 15 years old. And we saw an opportunity to solve a problem in the marketplace. And that was that women on average did not feel comfortable with the process. They didn't always feel they were treated with the respect that they deserved. And even J.D. Powers found that 75% of women would rather have a root canal than go car shopping. And we thought that was really sad, because car shopping can be fun, but there is a disconnect sometimes between the experience that the customer wants and the experience the customer actually gets. especially when those customers are women.
Yeah.
What surprised us was that half of our clients are men. So
Really?
yeah, it was crazy. So
I was about to say that it would seem that we've come a long way, and it would seem that. So I've heard many stories of relatives, friends going in who are women going in, doing the part of the process, doing a test drive, and then that salesperson makes the classic mistake. So do you want to like reach out to your husband or your dad or your brother and see if this is a good deal for you? And it's like, so
Yep.
It seems like that mentality is not quite around. I'm sure it's still out there floating around.
Sadly, Dave, I hear
die.
those stories from women every single week. It's
So frustrating.
still out there. Just this morning, one of my clients went to do a test drive at a dealership, and the salesperson made a rookie mistake. He said, "Are you sure you want to look? Are you sure you can afford a new BMW? Why don't we look at these pre-owned ones?"
Ooh.
I mean, my client probably makes 10 times what he does, but because she was a woman and she was dressed casually, she just dropped her kids off at school. He made the mistake of just assuming she couldn't afford the car.
Oh man.
I wouldn't have sent her over there if she couldn't afford the car.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, these mistakes still happen, and there are a lot of training opportunities still out there.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are. So interesting. And now also to kind of take a little bit of a tangent, you have this affinity of the car business, and you're a race car driver. Explain that. I mean, I'd like to say I'm a race car driver, but I'm not. But it sounds like you are.
It started at a very young age, and not everything that led up to what I do now was what we would call exactly above board or legal. But my father got me into cars when I was really little. My first favorite car was our neighbor's orange Volkswagen Bug. I was 3 years old, and the Herbie the Love Bug movies were out. And so I blame Disney for my love of cars. And my father had his first midlife crisis, and when he turned 30, he bought himself a first generation Mazda RX-7.
Oh, nice.
And so the first time I'd ever seen a sports car in our driveway, certainly, but first time I'd ever seen a manual transmission. And so he started teaching me how to drive stick, and I would sit in the passenger seat and I would work the shifter while he worked the clutch and the gas. And so we tandem drove.
Yeah.
And he just taught me performance driving growing up. And eventually I started learning it legally and got out on the track and started training with Porsche. And I've been racing legally for about 20 years now. And I race for a woman-owned race team that's based out of Knoxville, Tennessee now. So we have a really good time. We run 24-hour endurance road course races.
That is fun. And how often do you get to do that?
Pre-pandemic?
Well, yes.
Pre-pandemic, several times a year. We actually haven't raced in 2 years now because of issues with the car and also the pandemic. So we're really hoping to get back to it either this fall or the next season, next February.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So let's again shift the gears a little bit, and let's talk about vehicle personalization when it comes to finding that right vehicle. A big part of our process here is talking about how to help customers customize that vehicle, because that makes them love the vehicle more, invest in vehicle more. What's been your take on vehicle personalization, and how have you helped customers accessorize their vehicles, as you go through your process? You mentioned lifestyle, so I would assume that has a lot to do with it.
Absolutely. Some of the questions I ask my clients are, how many kids do you have? How old are they? What sports are they involved in? What kind of animals are you going to be transporting? Dogs in the car? What type of activities do you guys like to do that this vehicle needs to support? So we do a lot of customization with making sure we've got maybe a barrier in the back to keep the dog contained in the back seat so it doesn't drool over your shoulder while you're driving. I'm not sure they have the same. Sometimes we implement that for the kids too, but mostly for the dogs. And then there's all these great racks like bikes, paddle boards, anything that you want to do outdoors, there's a rack for that for most SUVs. And that's when it can get fun to be able to buy those directly through the dealership, through their partnerships, and have those accessories put on the car before you even take delivery of it. Because my clients really want to save a lot of time and hassle. So being able to set all that up and get it taken care of, and then the car shows up and boom, it is ready to go. They can sign the papers, load up their stuff, and head out for the weekend. It's great.
Yeah, it wraps up so many things that we've continued to talk about as best practices, because when you do that at the time of the sale of the car, you're actually incorporating those accessories into the warranty in most manufacturers' case. And in the case of your highlines like Jaguar Land Rover, believe it or not, you can residualize accessories in your lease, which they are unique in that respect. So adding it at the time of sale is a big part of making that customer happy. So it sounds like we're all in alignment there. What would you say to if you had a class full of salespeople at dealerships? What's kind of the 1, 2, 3 that you would say to them, especially as we're thinking about the here and now? I think that we have crossed an edge where customer sentiment has really come this direction in terms of, hey, I want it now. I want it less hassle. I want the car I want when I want it. And I think dealers have definitely started to adopt or thinking about adopting. I mean, they're definitely happening. What would you say in sort of as we proceed in the rest of 2021 are the top 1, 2, 3 that you should think about as a salesperson in the store?
Number one is always listen to your customer. And that's one of the biggest complaints I hear from people is that they didn't listen to me. They just followed their script and wanted to sell me what they wanted to sell me. They didn't listen to what I needed. So take this as an opportunity to build a relationship. People want to do business with the people that they know, like, and trust. And so you have to build that. And by listening to them and building that relationship, you get to know them. You get to know, hey, you have kids. What do your kids like to do? Are you going to need to be able to transport sporting equipment? What do you guys like to do for fun? Do you like into biking? Do you like to go paddleboarding? Do you like to go camping? Help them to make a buying decision. Don't sell them. And then that way you can introduce things like accessories up front while you're talking about the car. Well, hey, look, we've got this much cargo space back here so you can put all of your stuff. But then we also can give you these racks that go on the top, and you can put your paddle boards up here. You can put your bikes on the back. Show them how you can make the vehicle do everything that they need it to do, and just make that a part of the discussion when you're showing them the car, not necessarily something that is an afterthought. And I would say really stress the warranty piece, because David, that was a really good point that you made, is that when you get the accessories installed by the dealer, it becomes a part of the warranty. If you go off on your own and have accessories installed aftermarket, then it gets into a little bit of a gray area. If there's a problem with the vehicle, there's some wiggle room there for the warranty to potentially be voided. And I have seen this a lot especially with things like Jeeps. The young guys buy the Jeeps and they want to go do all these cool things to it and put on a lift kit, and they do it themselves. And next thing they know, they've done it wrong, and they drive the Jeep through the water and their wiring harness gets wet, and they've now shorted out the whole wiring harness. And the dealer goes, I'm sorry, but that kind of voided your warranty. So this is a true story. I've seen it happen. My brother did it. But oops. Yeah. So having the dealer install those accessories is not only convenient, but it's also safer because they're trained to install them, and it becomes a part of the warranty. And quite frankly, then you don't have to run around and try and research what are the best accessories, what are the best brands, because the dealers do partner with some of the best brands out there in those accessory market. And you don't have to figure out, okay, well, who am I going to have install this? And are they going to do a good job? Have they ever installed it before? There's so many unknowns. And just doing it through the dealer just makes it so much easier and much less risk.
Yeah, agreed. 100% agree. So let's talk now about the customer themselves. I mean, what I've heard and read is that right now we've got more new buyers entering the market who have, and what I find fascinating is up in the Northeast is happening a lot, They have relied on public transportation all this time. They have realized that that's not going to be good enough for them, or they just don't want to do public transportation anymore. So you've got this sort of a new group of buyers coming into the market. What are you seeing in terms of the buyers and the buyer types that are coming into the market right now, buying a new or used vehicle?
Yeah, a lot of younger folks. I've noticed I've had a lot of clients actually that were moving out of places like New York City and moving someplace else. They kind of wanted to get
Right.
out of that rat race, and especially after the pandemic. And I can't imagine being quarantined in a little tiny apartment in New York City. I think I would have gone crazy. And so
I did a podcast with a guy that he was stuck in Hell's Kitchen, and we did a podcast during the pandemic. And it's like, yeah, I was out back and I got a yard and everything, and he's in a little tiny apartment in Hell's Kitchen. So you're right. So I'm sorry, I got us.
It was definitely Hell's Kitchen at that point. But I think they're wanting the freedom. We felt trapped for the last year. And people are also, the number one thing consumers are looking at right now is safety. Am I going to be safe, whatever I'm doing? And okay, public transportation has never been the most safe method of transportation, but now especially it's just, people, it's too people-y. So
Right.
they want that. They want that way too people-y. So, the trade-off is you got to deal with traffic, but at least you're in your own space and you can customize that space and you can listen to your own tunes. And so I see a lot of first-time car buyers that are actually in their 30s and 40s. It's not the 20-somethings that are first-time car buyers because, woo, I have a job, I have money. It's folks that have relied on public transportation or have lived in a place where that's just the norm. And either they're moving or they're like, I've got to have my own vehicle so I can get out when I need to get out, even if it's just to drive around and not be in my apartment. I had a great client that was a phenomenal interior designer, moved from New York City, moved out to the San Francisco Bay Area, and had never bought a car before and didn't know anything about the process. And not only did we find a phenomenal little car for him, but we talked about how to accessorize it to support his interior design business. We got some really cool graphics put on it for his business, and it looks great. It's very, very personal to him. There's not going to be another car like it in the Bay Area.
That's very, very cool. That's a great story. In terms of the vehicles that people are looking for right now, you've got this sort of new group of car buyers. Is it cars? Is it SUVs? Is it trucks? What are you seeing that mix right now in terms of the different categories of vehicles? We seem to be really getting away from cars, really getting more into that light SUV segment. Trucks is always a home run. Are we leaving cars behind from your perspective? Cars, sedans.
Cars. Yeah, we really are. And when I've gone to the auto shows over the last few years, that's been the theme. It's SUVs. And they're building them smaller and smaller and smaller to replace the cars. I talked about it in one of my videos after the auto show a couple of years ago, how it's like the Papa Bear and the Mama Bear and like all the little baby bears. If you can't find an SUV in the shape and size to meet your lifestyle, it's your lifestyle that's the problem, not the market. There's so much out there. You get these little teeny ones, like the Toyota CHR. It's adorable. It's tiny. All the way up to, of course, your what I call the big honking SUVs, your Suburbans and your Expedition XLs that, basically school buses for your family. But there's everything in between. But the difference is people want to sit up higher. So even if they don't necessarily need more space, or they even still want a small vehicle because of the parking situation, they still want to be able to sit up a little higher because everybody else is driving SUVs and you can't see diddly squat on the road. So again, it's a comfort and safety thing, and it's easier to get in and out of too, especially as we get older.
Yeah, I refuse to go the SUV route. I had a Isuzu Rodeo a long time ago, and I just whatever. I just like a sedan, so I think I'm one of the long holdouts. I mean, I've got a Passat, the Diplomat right now, and that's a great car, great driving car. And I think about, my next vehicle is definitely going to be some sporty sedan that has 4 doors, but man, it can move. And I just can't see myself in the SUV. Now there are some pretty ones. Those Land Rovers are nice, and the brand new VW, the Atlas, that's a beautiful car. And so I'm going to be one of those holdouts. Still driving my sedan, my 4-door sedan with. And what do you drive? What's your daily?
Well, before we get into that, because that's a whole nother story, but I think there still is going to be a market for sedans. And again, what you've just described is your lifestyle.
Right.
A sedan works for you. You don't need to pile 3 kids in there. Really the transition to SUVs have been because of our families and being able to transport them all around in a way that's maybe a little bit sexier than in a minivan. Although don't knock the minivan. The minivan can be very sexy if you do it right. But
the swagger wagon. Yeah, absolutely.
I have driven a swagger wagon on a racetrack.
Oh,
I am not kidding.
Really?
Yep.
That's fantastic.
When I was doing some tire testing with Michelin, and we were doing a driving event for a lot of the shops that came out. And this was at Michelin's private test track. And a problem that they found was that all the guys were like, oh, they were testing them on BMWs. And so they were like, oh, this car is great. The car handles so well. And they were missing the fact that it was the tires. So we wanted to prove to them that it was the tire, not the car. So we put cheap Chinese donuts on the BMW and drove that around. And it was the sloppiest driving you've ever seen, but fun. And then we put the good tires on the Toyota Sienna Swagger Wagon and took that around the track. And my lap times in the Swagger Wagon were 6 seconds faster than in the BMW because of the tires. And let me tell you how much fun it was to drive a minivan on a racetrack. I mean, it was just hilarious. The whole body just rolled over in the curves, but it stuck.
Oh my gosh. Well, this was back when my kids were small. We never decided to do the minivan. We always had like a Pacifica or something like that. So that sort of crossover SUV at the time. But I had a rental of a Chrysler Town and Country, and they did the minivan beautifully. And this thing had like neon lights running around the inside. And it had the automatic, it was like the first time automatic doors were coming out. So I rolled up to the middle school to pick up my oldest. I had the other 2 in. I said, watch this. And I put on some music, and those doors came open, and the neon lights are coming out. Her band teacher lost his mind. It's like her face blew off. She was so mad at me. I'm like, why are you so upset? This was hilarious. Hey. Everybody's laughing. She didn't think it was funny. So I've never lived that moment down of pulling up in that Town and Country. And
that's impressive.
I think it was white with dark interior. It was magical. So
that's hilarious. My father used to drive the Dodge Caravan as his golf mobile, because it was easy to get all of his golf buddies and all their junk into it to go to the golf course. And one day he actually ended up playing golf with Nick Lachey and his band 98 Degrees, and they needed a ride back to their hotel. So my dad was able to load up Nick Lachey and these famous musicians into his Dodge minivan and take them back to their hotel. They didn't mind. Coolest minivan ever.
Reminds me of the scene, one of my favorite movies, Get Shorty, where John Travolta sells the Chevy Lumina or the Buick something to what's his name? The short guy, Danny DeVito. The very famous actor, whatever, in the movie, and they both had matching minivans. That was just hilarious.
Don't knock the minivan, but it has been, to a certain extent, replaced by the SUV, but there will still be a segment for sedans, especially in the luxury categories. So I'm actually going to be shopping for a brand spanking new Genesis G80 for one of my clients this afternoon. I'm really excited.
Nice. That looks like a beautiful car. Oh, yeah. Beautiful car.
And you get a lot of bang for your buck with Hyundai and Genesis. So they're
absolutely. I had a Kia Optima SX when it just came out. I think it was 2012, and that car blew me away. I mean, when I drive, I'm actually a pretty snobby person. I had a Saab. I had a Saab 9.3 Aero, and I
Nice.
love that car. I love
Those are
that.
fun.
I would have it again if Saab wasn't, blown up and gone. I would absolutely drive that car, and I test drove the Kia Optima, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is fun. It is fast. It is teched out. I mean, there was not any technology that wasn't jammed into that car in 2012. So,
and the technology is easy to use. They do a really good job with their user interfaces. But what I'm really lamenting is the, slow but sure demise of the manual transmission. For me, if a car doesn't have 3 pedals, it's not good. I won't drive anything without 3 pedals, unless it's a big truck. But I gotta have my 3 pedals.
And that's funny because I'm lazy. I don't want that. I want to put my foot on the gas and go. I don't want to have to do a whole bunch of stuff. Mainly, sort of in traffic.
In
right?
traffic.
I mean,
I'm spoiled because I work from home. So if I had to commute again, I would totally be there with you. But I learned on a stick shift. And to me, that's driving. Everything else is just aiming. Yeah. And I need that engagement with the car because even if I'm just going to the grocery store, the corner down at the end of my house, I refer to as turn 1. So you can take the girl off the racetrack, but you can't take the racetrack out of the girl. So
that's awesome. That is awesome. All right. So let's talk about, we're talking a lot about racing. Tell me more about your racing career. How'd you get into this car that you drive? And Maggie is the name of the car, correct?
Well, Maggie is my daily driver. She's my little Mini Cooper S that's wrapped in all of my business graphics. And she does go to the track with me when I'm instructing at the track and get to drive, or if I'm just doing a track day just for fun, she is the car that I drive. The race car lives in Tennessee with its owner, and that's a fully prepped race car. So it's not something that we can drive on the street. But Maggie does a good job of going from the street to the track. It's just sometimes she forgets where she is. And, I have the speeding tickets to prove it. But.
I was just about to ask, how many speeding tickets?
I'm going to plead the 5th on that one, David.
I remember going to a traffic violation hearing. It wasn't a speeding ticket, but and which I will say in advance that I did beat it. And I remember the judge having a person in front of him, wasn't me, obviously, who said, "Son, if I see you in front of me again, you will never drive for the rest of your life." This kid's like 18. He got caught doing like 120 and a 45. I mean, something's just absolutely stupid. And it obviously wasn't his first time. So has a judge said to you, "Leanne, if I see you again"?
No. And here's why. One, the guy that I consider my brother is a cop. And so sometimes he tells his cop buddies, just like, if you just see her, just let her go. Just let her go.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
And I do normally send my attorney to court for me because I know I wouldn't be able to bite my tongue. And I'd probably get myself in more trouble if I did go before the judge myself. So I kind of pay the attorney, but I don't speed. I don't do a lot of excessive speed on the road. I mean, that's not safe. And I'm a big fan of people being safe on the road. Sure. But Maggie is just naturally zippy. So it's a little more of, well, how quickly can we get up to that speed limit? And sometimes that is also frowned upon by polite society. But
absolutely.
She's also very agile because she's a mini, obviously. So, she handles ridiculously well. So one day I was driving up over by where the music factory, North Carolina Music Factory is, just north of Charlotte. And on the road there, it's a 2-lane on each side. And there were orange cones just kind of spaced, right, on that white dotted line between the 2 lanes. And I'm like, I see that. And I think, ooh, slalom course. So I did. I slalomed it. There was nobody else on the road by me. So I slalomed that. And so I got to where I was going. And my buddy was like, that's a funeral home right there. And they put those cones out to block off for a funeral procession.
Oh, oops.
So I slalomed funeral cones. But, I guess that's just kind of my way of paying, my respects and giving a good send off to the dearly departed. So fortunately, I didn't get caught by the police for doing that.
You have the guts to do something that, of course, everybody sees it and goes, man, that would be a lot of fun, but I'm going to just keep on driving. Nope, not LeeAnn.
Yeah, so this is why Maggie and I do have to go to the track every now and then to kind of get it out of our system. But I do have some accessories on her to make the track a little more fun. So
nice. So the race car, what kind of car is it, and what kind of racing is it? I mean, is it, you said it's the 24-hour endurance? Is it like a modified BMW? Is it a modified something? What is it?
It's actually technically a highly modified Eagle Talon, which was the same car as the Mitsubishi Eclipse.
Eclipse, yeah.
Second generation Eclipse.
Right.
So yeah, it's not the fastest car out there, but the way we have it set up, it can hold obscene amounts of speed in the corners. So, and that's really where we shine. You get us on a long straightaway, and there's a lot of other cars on the track that are going to blow by us, but you get into those turns and we have really good brakes, so we can wait and brake really, really late. And the car's so light that's really where we shine. And that's where the fun is anyway. If you just want to drive in a straight line, you could drag race, but I like turning left and right. That's where the fun is.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, so let's get back to the things at hand. Where do you see sort of this convergence of customer sentiment, dealership having to really be able to satisfy customers? I mean, do you see that we're on a quick progression to where maybe it's a complete touchless at a car dealership, or is it sort of another 2-3 years out to where we get to that sort of experience where, in and out of the dealership, it's minutes, it's not hours?
Right. And I think that we're still a little ways away from that, but the newer companies that are coming online and buying a car online, they're putting a lot of pressure on the dealers. The advantage the dealers still have is that obviously the franchise dealers are still the only ones that can sell the brand new cars, and the manufacturers are still dictating how that process works because they are franchises. And so they have, the dealers have to work a specific way that the manufacturer wants them to work. I think that is going to have to change over time, and companies like Tesla are throwing that model out the window a little bit and putting more pressure on the industry. I think we're still going to have physical car dealerships for a long time. And one of my big pet peeves is you should never buy a car before you test drive it, because no matter how great it looks on paper, comfort is in the butt of the beholder. So you've got to put your butt in the seat and see what really feels good to you.
That's right.
And especially if you're buying a used car, you've got to be able to see that car and really see its condition, get a pre-purchase inspection by a qualified mechanic. And a lot of the online only, just deliver it to my doorstep, doesn't give you the opportunity to do that before you make the purchase. So it's just kind of backward to me. I can't quite get on that bandwagon yet. It's like, I'm not going to buy it and then get it inspected. Yeah, I want to inspect it first.
Absolutely.
So I think that we're going to see physical dealerships for quite a while, but they're going to have to shift to accommodate people that do want that home test drive and that home delivery experience. And it also allows them to sell cars successfully outside of their geography. So I just bought a Toyota Highlander hybrid for a client who lives in Omaha, Nebraska, and we bought it in Naperville, Illinois. And they had a great process for it, and we were able to sign all the paperwork online, and we arranged shipping and had the car shipped to her house, and it was great. So It's good for them to have that flexibility, because I think they're going to make more sales that way.
Perfect. So let's wrap up with one last question specific to helping women buy cars. I mean, is it really different between men and women in buying cars? I mean, when you really get, if you said most of your customers happen to be men, and you specialize in women, what are the significant differences there in the mentality of the different buyer, male, female?
I don't think there is that big of a difference, honestly, especially in my clients, because I'm attracting the people that they're really busy. They don't have time to go to the dealership. They don't have time to do the shopping around and negotiating and research. And so there are also people that are not necessarily car people. And so most of my male clients, because it's about 50-50, maybe a little bit skewed 52% to men sometimes, they also are not necessarily comfortable with that negotiating process. or they just recognize I have better things to do with my time. And I'm finding sometimes they want different vehicles, but a lot of times their priorities are not that different. They both want safety. They both want the vehicle to do what they need it to do for them to support that lifestyle. And they just want a very hassle-free process that they can trust that they got a great deal and that they bought the right car for them. Because obviously getting a good deal starts with picking the right car in the first place. So if you buy the wrong car, you're out a lot of money. So I don't see, at least with the clients that I work with, there's not a lot of difference between the men and the women. And sometimes it's a couple coming to me. But
awesome.
The women do tend to feel a little less comfortable being at the dealership because of some of the training opportunities we discussed earlier that just still happen. So
right. Awesome. Well, Leanne, it's been a pleasure. If our audience would like to learn more about you and to even get in touch with you, and like I said, if I were a salesperson, I'd make you my next best friend. And so how do they do that? How do people reach out to you?
Absolutely. They can just go to my website. It's The Car Chick, and that's CHICK.com. All the information's out there. And I've got a lot of blog articles and podcasts, and they can link to my YouTube channel from there as well. And I'm just passionate about educating people about cars, whether they're a good fit for my service or not. I want them to be empowered to make a smart car buying decision so that they get the vehicle and all of the accessories they want to support their life.
It's awesome. Well, again, thank you for being our guest today. Podcast listeners, if you want to, we want to thank you for joining the conversation. If you have any questions for either one of us, please post it in the comments of the video. Reach out to us. You obviously know how to get in touch with us, and now you can get in touch with Leanne as well. Until next time, I'm David Stringer, and this is Next Up Accessories, where we connect your next up and vehicle personalization to help you make more money and happier customers. Thanks for tuning in. Every deal, every day. Bye-bye.